Greg, thanks for doing this. Not every day you get to sit down with the athletic director of one of the largest athletic departments in the country. The whole purpose of the podcast is the secrets to winning and what it takes to win. And sitting down with you makes me a little nervous. Okay?
I'm the nervous one. I don't normally do these fancy podcasts.
Exactly. You came in here and took over in a program that's having a lot of success. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about your leadership style, your vision, things like that. I mean, it's fascinating to sit and talk to you about what you've got going on.
Well, I think each place that you are is different as far as what the needs are. I'm going to go back when I was 36 years old when I became the athletics director at Mississippi State. And
that's young.
I was very young, and probably didn't know what I was doing. Now I'm 47. I don't necessarily know what I'm doing, but I try to fake it maybe better than I did back then. But at that point at Mississippi State, we were just trying to get some confidence. They've had success in baseball historically. They had some success in men's basketball. A lot of their other programs weren't really strong, and so part of what we were just trying to do is create some courage that we could go out, we could compete in the Southeastern Conference at the time. That was different than probably the approach here when I came to Alabama. I mean, obviously, incredible success, historical success from a football standpoint.
Right.
And then success in sports like gymnastics and softball, men's and women's golf, were competing at a really high level. But there were other sports that probably maybe had opportunities to get a lot better. And so one of the things I've always tried to do as a leader, whether it was Mississippi State, my second stop at Arizona, or here at Alabama, is try to encourage the people, the student athletes, the coaches, staff, everybody, and the fans by trying to be very respectful of who they are.
Yeah.
And understand that I chose to come to the University of Alabama. Dr. Bell, our president, and Fess St. John, the chair of the athletic committee at the time, and now our interim chancellor, they chose me, but the rest of the coaches and staff really didn't. Mm. And so I think one of the worst things new leaders can do at times is come in and say, I have to have my people. On the administrative side, I kind of understand a little bit more on the coaching side. And so what I try to do is come in and say, okay, let me learn, let me understand how you operate. Let me, as time goes on, hopefully earn your trust to where whatever changes we make for the opportunity to improve on what we do, that it's not me coming in and saying I've got all the answers. It's me coming in and trying to be very respectful of our history, our tradition, our culture, and then where are areas within those during our current culture that we can have opportunities to succeed today and then create that for the future as well. But it's I want it to be much more collaborative effort than me coming in as a new leader and saying, this is my way and this is what you have to do or else.
Yeah, because it's interesting to watch your integration here. And really it wasn't like this massive search. It wasn't, I mean, I'm sure they had the search, but to the public, all of a sudden, just happened. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you'd been chewing on it for a while. We don't have to go into that. But when you show up on the campus, you've got all these coaches that are, they're strong ego. They're driven individuals. And you got all this, and you come in, and instead of falling into the trap of having to enact your way immediately, which most leaders want to do, right? Mm-hmm. They want to have those early wins. You sat back and allowed things to work.
Right.
It's hard to sit on your hands, though, isn't it?
Well,
when you see things, it's like,
Even when you're learning and trying to take in the environment, you still stay very busy.
Yeah.
You know, reality, we have 650 student athletes. We have approximately 350 employees. We're very fortunate that we have a tremendous fan base. And so even one of the best things you can do when you're coming into a culture like this is taking the time to understand those different constituents and learn from them to help you shape what you do in the future. Yeah. And the more you spend time listening and learning, the more they buy in. I met with every head coach, I met with every department head, I met with our entire development operation, I met with a lot of deans on campus, I met with constituents throughout our student athletic advisory committee. And a lot of those meetings that I would have would either be a half hour, hour in length. I would get done with those meetings and I would probably have talked from 5 minutes on the half hour meeting to 10 minutes on the 60-minute meeting. I learn a lot more by using my eyes, my ears, and listening and reading than I ever am going to by using my mouth and talking. And so when I get done with those, people, I think, have a natural, better feeling about that new person they're in front of when they've been listened to. And so even though I wasn't ready to come in guns a-blazing and saying, this is what we're doing, X, Y, Z, to get to that, you had to spend your time growing and learning and hearing what people had to say, and then they're going to feel more confident that they've been listened to and they're part of the process. You
do that with the fans, though, too. I watch you on social media. For an athletic director, you're pretty active.
Yeah.
But that opens you up.
It does. You have to learn how to have people say,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, concessions. You get a lot of spirited conversation about that. You have to be willing to take criticism, and you have to be willing to not take it personally. I don't really, we just hired a men's basketball coach, Nate Oates. I met with the media before we went out on the search very purposely. Every word I said there was strategic, both to our fan base, to potential coaching candidates, their agents. The message was delivered at different times during that half hour or so I had with the media. If you communicate with people and tell them what expectations are, and then you deliver on what those expectations are, you have a lot better chance of having success with whatever decision that you make. And so one of the lines I said to the media that day was, I don't really care if we win the press conference. I want us to get a really good college basketball coach. That was the driver, and I put together qualities of what I wanted in that hire, both for our fans to understand and then also potential candidates to understand. And so when we hired Nate Oates, I didn't necessarily think we'd win the press conference because I thought people would say, I'm not sure who this guy is. That was the immediate reaction. And so Regina, my wife, was probably following it a lot more closely on social media than I was. And she said when we announced Nate, it was not very positive. It's like, who the heck is this guy? They were expecting John Wooden to come out, and that probably wasn't going to happen. But once they started researching Nate Oates and looked at his background and looked at the successes that he's had and that he's a blue-collar, hard-working, get in the gym, getting after it every day kind of coach, and they saw the results that had come from his approach, I think all of a sudden the narrative started changing. By the time the next day when we went to the press conference, we probably won the press conference. Yeah. But that wasn't our driver in our decision-making. And so I do think the fans really do appreciate if you engage with them, you make them feel important because they are. They're critical to our success. One of the things that separates Alabama than almost anybody else out there is the passion of our fan base. And so if Joe fan or Jane fan who sit at the very top of Bryant-Denny Stadium, you got to make them feel good and feel appreciated. You can't get to every single one of them, but what social media and what Twitter allows you to do is to have limited interaction at times and carefully and strategically pick out some messages to where you show some engagement, and that makes people feel like they know you.
Yeah, one of the things I caught in your press conference, because I heard you say, if it doesn't come out of my mouth, don't believe it. And right before you announced on a picture of who the coach was, there was a rumor going around.
Yes.
And I thought, you got him. And it may not have been strategic.
It wasn't, yeah.
But it was, to me, I saw that from a psychological standpoint. I'm like, well done. Because it reinforced what you said you were going to do.
Right.
Don't believe anything until you hear it come out of my mouth.
Right. And Regina, my wife again, told me afterwards that there was a rumor of another coach, like within minutes,
an hour.
Leading up to it. I didn't know that. That was not placed by me or anybody around me, very sincerely.
Yeah.
But having been through enough coaching searches in my life, all the way back with my dad when he was an athletics director, knowing how this works, I was just trying to say, don't believe the hype out there. Don't believe the narratives, because what will happen and what the average fan doesn't understand is sometimes agents will try to put names out there in the media, and that somebody you've never even talked to, never had any interaction with, but people see it through social media and just assume, man, that's who they're talking to. And so I'll always remember I was at Mississippi State. We're searching for a football coach. We ended up hiring Dan Mullen, who's now at Florida. And I said, it's the only time I've used a search consultant on a search. And I used Chuck Ninus at that time. And I said to Chuck, I said, I can't have the agents putting false narratives out there. And a lot of agents don't do that, but some do.
Yeah.
And I said, what if we just say to the agents and to the candidates that if it leaks that they've interviewed with us, or according to sources they're the leading candidate, or whatever it may be, we just assume they don't want the job. And I asked Chuck, who had a great career in college athletics, and I said, anybody ever done that? I'm 36 years old, I don't know what I'm doing. And he said, no, nobody ever has. I said, what do you think we try it? He said, yeah. Called me Gregor a lot of times. He said, Gregor, if you think that'll work, give it a try. So we did, and it worked. And so we've kept doing it.
I love that, though, from a leadership standpoint. It's like, I told you. And I'm not going to circumvent what I told you. I'm standing by my word.
Right.
You have demonstrated a really strong connection to your student athletes. Just last night, you had a meeting with your SAC committee, your SAC athletes.
At our house.
At your house.
Right.
That's, I asked you before I came on, how do you like to be addressed? Because where I was, it was always much more formal. And even coming into your office, there's a moment of like, ooh, we're in the big guy's office. Okay. But you have an open, I'm watching how you interact with Emma on our team and all the other stuff. That's pretty cool.
I tell our staff, I don't say my staff, it's our staff, okay? The buck stops somewhere, we understand that. But we want to have each person feel valued. But I tell our staff we're here to serve our university, we're here to serve our student athletes, and we're here to serve our fans and our coaches, okay? Those are the constant things that have to be here. I hope when I'm done as athletics director at the University of Alabama, I hope many years from now, that when I get done, they say, you know what, Greg's done a good job and he's going to be hard to replace because he's done a good job. But I'm replaceable. I understand that. And so what you want to do is have each student athlete that we have, and we have 650 of them, and it's hard, and I try like the Dickens to know everybody's name, and I have mixed results of that. I try to know all our donors' names, all of our staff names, and as I'm getting a little older too, it's not quite as on top,
right there,
right there as it used to be. But every one of those people wants to feel valued. Every one of them wants to feel like they bring value to our university, whether it's our student athletes, whether it's our coaches, whether it's our staff, whether it's our fans. And I want to feel valued. And so if I don't want to try to have the same interaction and treat somebody in that same manner that I do, then I'm a hypocrite. And so one of the things I tell our staff, make sure you know who's helping you from a custodial standpoint in the building, because they're working hard. They're getting here at 4 o'clock in the morning to help you have a clean office or a clean locker room. So when you bring a recruit in, that it's not embarrassingly dirty. Because if it's dirty, then all of a sudden you're going to lose credibility. You do not have enough pride in what you're doing. That person on our custodial team is critical to our success at the University of Alabama. Make them feel valued. I want our student athletes to feel valued. Doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. I'm concerned about where we're going now, where transfer portals and things like that. Yeah. Somebody has a bad day at practice. Coach looked at me funny. I didn't like the coach got after me because I wasn't maybe performing at the level I should be. Well, I'm going to go get in the transfer portal. There still needs to be accountability. There still needs to be structure. There still needs to be discipline. But you can have all those things and still make people feel valued in the process. And that's important to try to create that culture within your department. And I got a long way to go. I'm trying to learn at that and grow with that every day.
Well, that leads to my last two questions for you, because I want to be sensitive of your time. One, how do you develop that for you? What resources do you utilize? And then two, to that flip point, the last question is, how do you keep that balance with your family? Because it's not easy. You're here a lot.
Yeah.
And you're on the road a lot. Mm-hmm. And I get here a lot of times early in the morning, your car's already here.
Right.
And it's how do you develop you? And then how do you maintain that balance with your family?
Well, I think from a development of myself, I think you have to, and the family and personal are both key components of it. My mom's an educator. She was a high school teacher for a lot of my growing up years, and then a middle school and high school administrator, and ended up being a dean of a small college in Nebraska called Doane, of their educational administration program after she got her PhD in her mid-40s. So I watched her continue to develop who she is as a teacher and as a leader. I watched my dad, who was an athletic director for 29 years. So he's probably 65, 66, towards the end of his career. And I'm the young whippersnapper AD, trying to figure out which way's up. And he's calling me and asking me for advice on things. And I'm thinking, sitting there going, God, if my dad's asking me for advice, then I better never act like I've got it figured out, because he was one of the most tenured ADs in the country at the time. And so I learn from our student athletes, I learn from our coaches, I learn from our staff. You know who's a really good learner and listener and developer of who he is Nick Saban.
Yeah.
I'm amazed at that.
Yeah.
And he does such a good job of continuing to evolve as who he is as a coach, and he deserves a ton of credit for that. Well, if Nick Saban can do that, I sure as heck can. And then you also have your personal side from a faith standpoint. I told our student athletes last night when they were at our house, I said, guys, one of the things I want to challenge you in today's world of, part of my theory is part of the reason why social media is so popular is everybody loves to talk about themselves, right? But I'll tell you, as a person, when I focus on me, myself, and I, rather than we, us, collectively trying to bring people together and trying to serve other people, when I have that selfish attitude, I'm not as good an AD, I'm not as good a father, I'm not as good a dad or a husband, I'm not as good a friend, I'm not as good a person. But when I try to think about what can I do to engage with others, serve others, I'm a heck of a lot better at all those things. And that's the same thing for Regina and I. We married 25 years in May. Our marriage hasn't been perfect. We've had our ups and downs, because every marriage has their ups and downs, but we've continued to work on it and make sure we engage with each other. She gets up later than I do, because I'm usually up at 5:30 in the morning. But I call her, we talk every morning about 8 a.m. Sometimes it's for 1 minute, sometimes it's for 5, but we've done that. Usually, at least by mid-afternoon, we've touched base again for at least 1 to 5 minutes. And then if I'm on the road, which I am a decent amount, before I go to bed that night, we're going to talk again. You got to engage with the things that are important for you. So taking care of yourself, you got to exercise, you got to, I love to eat. I love to eat some of the things you shouldn't eat, but I also know I have to do that in moderation. And so trying to have that balance, and there's sometimes I get done with a meal and it's like, dang, I ate way more than I should have. I feel terrible, and I got to learn from that. Doesn't mean I'll never do it again, but I try to learn from those things and try to find that balance. And with our boys, college athletics, and I tell our staff, this thing is a lifestyle, it's not a job. You don't come in at 8 o'clock and go home at 5 o'clock and put your feet up. You got to be engaged with your student athletes, your teams. You got to be there when they're competing, so they know you care about what they're doing. And I was fortunate, and still am, that Regina has been extremely supportive of this journey and to where we are today. And then my boys we didn't hunt, we didn't fish. I play a little bit of golf when I can, but we went to ball games, and that's what we did. And that's what I grew up doing, and got a picture up there of my dad and I in 1976 or 7, high-level fundraising. It was a walkathon back then at the University of New Mexico when he was the fundraiser. And so that's what I grew up around too, and I've been very fortunate for that, and wouldn't change it for anything.
Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me on. Roll Tide.
You got it. Thank you.